Welcome. Tonight we revisit that burning question, just how much is enough? Nigeria's minimum wage currently stands at 30,000 naira, but with inflation soaring and the living standards plummeting, is it time for a drastic revision? Today, Nigeria's federal government inaugurated the tripartite committee on the national minimum wage. Vice President Kashim Shettima himself did the inauguration of the 37-member panel at the Council Chamber of the State House in Abuja. Its members are drawn from, as law prescribes, the federal and the state governments, the private sector, and organized labor. And the panel is to recommend a new national minimum wage for the country. Well, former head of the Civil Service of the Federation, Bukar Aji, chairs that panel. We'll get to know some of the members of that panel as time goes on. Now, the minimum wage in Nigeria has been steady at 30,000 naira. That's about $30. 30,000 naira. That's about $30. But if you go by the exchange rate yesterday, which is now above 1,000 naira, then you know that it's less than $30. But let's just say, so the minimum wage for Nigeria is at least, or at most, $30 a month. Let that sink in. Since April 18, 2019. In 2023, the government of Nigeria announced an additional 35,000 naira wage award, that's all you can call it, a wage subsidy, to each of its employees, that's government workers, for 6 months, starting from 1st September 2023, September, October, November, December, January, February, March. After President Tinubu had removed fuel subsidy on May 29, 2023, the president declared subsidy is gone. And that meant that the total amount payable to a worker under the federal government and the federal government's employee would be 65,000 naira per month. And this was a measure to alleviate the impact of the subsidy removal. That's a subsidy on petrol. However, Nigeria's organized labor, in particular the Trade Union Congress and the Nigeria Labour Congress, have always maintained that the 35,000 naira that the government gave as a wage award was a provisional solution, emphasizing the need for a review of the minimum wage in the year 2024. And of course, with the inauguration of this committee, that is set to happen. The National Minimum Wage Act of 2019, which established a 30,000 naira minimum wage, also includes a clause mandating a review of the wage every 5 years. That's why this committee is being inaugurated. It means even if the president didn't want to increase the minimum wage, the law mandates him, makes sure that he does, forces him actually to do that. So every 5 years, the National Minimum Wage Act of 2019 means or says that there should be a review. This review is intended to, adjust that minimum wage based on certain factors, including the prevailing economic conditions and the cost of living, to ensure that that wage remains a living wage for the lowest paid of the Nigerian workers. Now, what clause are we talking about? The National Minimum Wage Act of 2019 in Section 3, subsection 4 states, quote, the national minimum wage shall be reviewed every 5 years and may be adjusted after due consideration of the prevailing economic and social conditions. We'll look at membership of the committee as we go on. But I want to introduce our guests tonight on the program to do justice to the question and the topic generally, Nigeria's minimum wage. What should it be? Comrade Amechi Asogudi is a former deputy president of the Nigeria Labour Congress, the group that has been calling for a new national minimum wage. And we have Dr. Ibrahim Oshino. He was a member of the All Progressives Congress Presidential Campaign Council in 2019 and also in the recently conducted 2023 general elections. Gentlemen, it's a pleasure to have both of you on the program tonight.
Yes, it's a pleasure having you. Thank you.
All right, I want to start with you, Comrade. What are the labor unions hoping for in this review? Is 65,000 naira what we can call the magic number? Is there room for compromise, either to take it up or to take it down, in your opinion?
Yeah, when we talk about wage review, negotiation is a legitimate opportunity, or call it a platform, in which the employers and the employees' representative sit to negotiate the best and the appropriate wage that is considered looking at the prevailing cost of living. And don't forget, when we talk about wage, we're not talking about bonus. We're talking about legitimate compensation for work done. And as such, I want to believe Nigeria Labour Congress, vis-a-vis Trade Union Congress, they are representing the entire workforce of this country, including the private sector. I want to also believe that the expectation is upward mindset, and nobody should think otherwise, because like you pointed out in your preamble, 30,000 as minimum wage can no longer even feed a worker for 1 week. And therefore, expectation is in that order. So labor union are in their full stand to ensure that the outcome of this negotiation does not just meet expectation, but we also outlive the present circumstances. Because the challenge we have now, if nothing tangible is done, it means the outcome will be useless. So we are encouraging them, believing that they're already feeling the heat, and the people representing workforce are the direct workers themselves who are feeling the pain. So the expectation is upward minded, and I want to believe the employers also from the side of government, looking at the representative of government that spoke earlier or late last year, gave impression that Mr. President have tangible package for Nigerian workers.
Comrade, before I go over to your counterpart on the program, Ibrahim Oshinwo, where you say upward, please help us to be clear with what you, because I believe you're still a Nigerian worker, so you're once a labor unionist, always a labor unionist. Upwards on the 30,000 naira, upward on 65,000 naira, which is now like sort of a temporary buffer, palliative of sort.
No, what they have now is not considered as minimum wage has not changed from 30,000. Wage award is a temporary measure that Mr. President, in line with the Constitution of Nigeria, that method was, don't forget, up till now, private sectors workers have not benefited that very college bonus. So what we're looking at is negotiation.
Okay.
Is still
so comrade, how much do you think is ideal? It's a question I want you to answer without, mincing words. Comrade, how much do you think will be ideal? I want you to consider you're an experienced labor unionist. You know these things better than we do, and with your experience and looking at the environment, the economic climate today, how much do you think will it be ideal to be the least that a Nigerian worker who is employed formally should take home?
From my experience and considering the role I have played for Nigerian workers, I have participated in wage review, national minimum wage. I've participated in palliative to cure challenges, and consider them multi-negotiation from even in construction sector when I led as national president. When a committee is set up in this order, nobody, not even the NSC president or TUC president, can predict what the outcome will be. And if we want to speak to guide the negotiation on what they should do, less or more, it will look as if we're letting the cat out. So we don't sabotage the strength of the labor union. We will not also sabotage on the part of government. What I can tell you is that reasonable increase will be done, considering the standard of living.
Yeah, comrade, you're saying what you've said. Comrade, I want you to tell me what will be reasonable. I want you to hit the nail on the head. I'm not saying you should give us a specific amount, but give us a range. What do you think will be reasonable, sir?
Don't forget, they have already made an offer. They have already made a demand. And if labor union have demanded over 200,000 as their demand, federal government is to make offer vis-a-vis demand versus reality. So I will tell you that between their demand and where we are now, reasonable increment is expected on the part of labor. As a matter of fact, while the negotiation is ongoing, discussion of this nature will continue to also put them on their toes. But I tell you, nobody will be considering anything less in this. The margin we had before was from 18,000 to 30, which was over 100%. And the question is, even 100% of 30,000 leaves us at 60. Can that take Nigerian workers home? I leave it to the committee.
Okay, all right.
That is the best I can say.
Thank you very much. Dr. Shino, where do you stand in all of this? What do you think will be, a fair minimum wage, the least that a formerly employed Nigerian worker or worker in Nigeria should go on with, looking at all the factors, affecting the situation?
I don't know if I can't see you, but can you see me?
Yes, we can see you. Okay, I'm told we cannot see you. I'm told we cannot see you, Dr. Shino.
I'm trying to get in touch with you. I don't know if you can see me now.
Just enable your Zoom video, and I think if we can, once we can see you, just fire on.
I was enjoying the show. I didn't know I was. I'm coming. Let me just try and work on it because I can't see you.
All right. While we're waiting for Dr. Shino to join us back, comrade, can we also look at the fact that we don't have to. Labor has to also consider the government, consider businesses. Especially looking at the economic situation, government is finding it difficult to even clear what they call forex backlog, and they're trying to restabilize the economy. Businesses have been through a lot. So how does labor factor in, consideration for the other stakeholders like government and the private sector businesses? Comrade.
Yes, even before I continue, I want to correct the impression I made earlier. 18,000 was the old order of minimum wage when the negotiation took it to 30, which was close to 100%, but not the 100% as wrongly quoted. And that is to say that even when you make it 100% now, it only leaves you at 60,000. So the committee will evaluate that. Considering the part of government, I want to tell you that negotiation is all about consideration. You evaluate, you review, you consider factors on the other side, because when we also demand for pay, government also, employers demand for higher productivity, because salary is not just to compensate you, but for truly work done. And the measure of what, don't forget, the problem we have in this country is we don't also promote production. If productivity was actually a guide for wage review, government on their own will review wage, not waiting for the 5 years tenure. So I must tell you that it depends on the conditions that federal government is coming with. When they come with yardsticks that are reasonable, realities that you can see clearly, not to tell us what you intend to do, to use it as a way to beat wage down, and thereafter do nothing about those promises. So economy is collapsing, we can see. But the question is, wage increment takes how many percent of our national income? So the reality is not just to tell us why wage should not get to 100,000 or 150, but also tell us the side-by-side plan of government with every empirical data that suggests implementation in the closest, nearest future. Because what we're seeing in Nigeria is when workers go on protest to demand wage, they tell you they are paying debt. So the question is, what is the governing strategy to actually promote internal generating revenue, that what we generate internally outside the oil already made source of income can even pay wage and address some other running costs of governance? When we begin to actually make use of other natural resources and including taxes and co that should assist government raise funds. Most governors are not actually doing best as expected. The productivity on the part of governance is very low. And that is why it's difficult for average governor in Nigeria to demand productivity from workers because the programs are low. It is when you have programs, availability, workers make themselves available to work. It takes employers now to make work available for them to enable them generate income through the skill of the employees. Unfortunately, they are seeing salary as a burden because to them, workers are not generating for them.
Yeah,
Only to them that without workers, nothing can work in the nation.
Thank you, Corbett. You're saying workers make themselves available for work, and you can't blame them for being unproductive. It is the businesses and government that should give them something to do so they'll be productive. I will follow you up on that question, but I'm told we have Dr. Ibrahim Oshinowo back. We'll go for a quick commercial break. We'll come back, we'll put him on, and then we'll move forward with our discussion. Please stay with us. Welcome back. Still asking the question, how much is enough as minimum wage for Nigeria today? Nigeria's federal government inaugurating a 37-member committee, a tripartite committee to recommend a new national minimum wage, which will be approved by the president. If he agrees with them, and he will sign that, approve that as new national minimum wage. The Vice President Kashim Shettima performed the inauguration of the committee. Still with us tonight, Comrade Amaechi Asuguni, former Deputy President of the Nigeria Labour Congress, and Ibrahim Oshinowo is a member of the All Progressives Congress Campaign Council. He was a member in the 2019 and 2023 presidential elections. Dr. Oshinowo, over to you. What's your ideal range for the new minimum wage? We know we will have a new minimum wage. What in your opinion, should be the ideal range? Your counterpart, Comrade Amaechi Asuguni, has reminded us that Labour is asking for 200,000 as a new national minimum wage. But he has said that even a 100% increase on the current minimum wage will not be enough. What's your take?
Thank you once again. It's a welcome development that the President and Commander-in-Chief of Armed Forces is, living by his words and following the Constitution by inaugurating the 37-man panel headed by the former head of service of the Federation, Mr. Jaji, and many other eminent Nigerians. The present Minister for Labour Productivities, Minister of Finance, Minister of Special Duty, and among others, eminent Nigerians, to review the president.
Dr. Oshinowo, do we have you there? All right, we have lost a signal with our guest. It's quite interesting. Comrade, sometimes businesses warn that they potentially job losses and job closures because of the fact that the minimum wage could be set too high. And if the bar is set too high, they will have to let some workers go. They will have to either close down the business or sack or lay off some workers. You were talking about productivity, and you were saying that these workers are there. The employers need to give them something to do. But if the employers say, well, there's nothing for me to give you to do, and now the minimum wage is too high, I can't employ you, will Labour understand that those workers will become unproductive in real terms and will be asked to go?
That would be funny, because in a developing country such as Nigeria, we shouldn't be talking about not knowing the template to develop in order to keep our workers active. Anyone in Nigeria that tells you that workers are underproductive, it means that the employer, the one as the head of the state, is the one that is not productive. When the employer is productive, workers indeed follow suit. So I tell you that the only challenge we have in Nigeria is to develop a productive template in such a way that you don't hire a consultant when you are truly paying professionals in that same field. That is where we entertain waste of fund. Workers of Nigeria are very readily available to do their job. Go to Ministry of Works and see how the cost of consultancy, including finance, Ministry of Finance, go and see what when they have professional chartered accountant with years of experience will be abandoned, and then you hire the service of a consultant paying hundreds of millions just because somebody wants to doctor corruption. So I believe that if they come with that kind of excuse, Nigerian workers, especially the leaders of Nigeria Labour and the Trade Union Congress, eventually will begin to ask questions on what they meant by low productivity, what government meant by proposing redundancy in the time when we are saying we need help. How can government survive without workforce?
Comrade, you're aware that Nigeria is currently borrowing, to fund the budget. Buhari in his time had to beg workers to take something lower than what they were asking for. That's labor, and they landed at 30,000 naira. If we double it or triple it, in fact, you said double won't be enough. So let's say we triple it or quadruple it. It'll almost be as if we're using almost the entire budget to pay salaries. And can Nigeria afford that? Well, not almost, but a sizable chunk of the budget. Can Nigeria afford that?
No, Nigeria can afford much more than we are even doing now. What Nigeria need to do is to cut costs of irrelevant expenses, activities that are not helping Nigeria. There is no way you will consider budget for salary as irrelevant to a country like Nigeria. So the question is, the quantum of money we spend monthly, remove salary from it and tell me the percentage you represent. And then ask Nigerians, when they put projects before the public, people think that infrastructure is happening everywhere in Nigeria. The federal roads of this country are failing to the extent that we are losing them. As a matter of fact, I'm still waiting for Mr. President's agenda to what I consider the true federalism, so that there is nothing like federal road in any state. Let every state own their land. Let every state develop their state, including the roads. That is when you begin to cut costs and eliminate corruption. If I tell you the budget they are making for FEMA, when they are not doing anything on any federal road, and every year you see them, take for example.
So maybe they should let the workers there. Maybe they should, maybe they should let the workers there go home. Maybe that's what you're saying, because they're not doing anything. It means they're not being productive.
Workers are very active. Workers are active.
But you just said that the FEMA isn't doing anything. They have a budget, but they don't do anything. So maybe you're saying that they're unproductive, and then
they are supposed to be active. I'm telling you that the supervision from the point of governance is very poor. Corruption in FEMA. I'm referring to the corruption, not the workers. A worker is available, like I told you, but when leaders are not rolling out those assignments for them, they won't go to feed. So I tell you that we have what it takes to repair those roads. You can't be repairing the same federal road and the reconstruction, a budget has been made for that same road to be reconstructed. So which one are we budgeting for? You will see both in our budget list. A road is to be constructed, that same road is under maintenance cost. Who does that? So okay. I'm telling you that when you give it to a contractor will work with Nigerians.
Comrade, how about the private sector?
That is needed in construction sector.
How would you, as a labor leader, respond if what's your view of the private sector saying, hello, okay, we too, we're also going through our own difficulties. We're not government. You guys sat in a room. Well, they're part of these negotiations anyway, because the Employers Consultative Forum is represented. But you've come to this amount of money. Maybe they quadrupled it like you want it to be done. And the businesses say we can't afford to pay 200,000 naira minimum wage, 100,000 naira minimum wage, etc. We're going to have to let people go. How do you think? What's your view of that? This private sector now. All right, we'll go on a break. We're still looking at the issues surrounding Nigeria's attempt at agreeing a new national minimum wage. Don't forget, we have a committee that has been inaugurated today at the State House in Abuja. The committee has, amongst its membership, members of the private sector. You have representatives of the federal government, the state governments, organized labor, and that panel is to recommend a new national minimum wage for the country as per the National Minimum Wage Act of 2019. When we come back, we'll continue with our conversation. Please do. Welcome back. We're still looking at Nigeria's attempt to implement or to install a new national minimum wage. The current amount is deemed too little. It has been in effect since 2018. And of course, that was in the days of Muhammadu Buhari as president. 2019, I apologize for that. That's April 18, 2019. And this year, as per the National Minimum Wage Act of 2019, particularly Section 3, subsection 4, or Clause 3, sub 4, it says that every 5 years, the national minimum wage has to be reviewed as a matter of law. Our guest tonight, we have two guests. Dr. Ibrahim Oshinowo is a member of the All Progressives Congress Presidential Campaign Council in the 2019 and 2023 presidential elections. Comrade Amechi Asuguri is former deputy president of the Nigeria Labour Congress. Comrade, before we went on the break, I was asking for your thoughts on the difficulties that private businesses will go through and the fact that some of them may have to let some of their workers go if the minimum wage is considered too high for them to afford.
No, I don't think we are going to suffer such challenge because wage is constant in budgeting in private sector. And because of the constancy of wage, that become a priority in whatever they do. It's either you don't get a job to do or you have a job to do. So it's immaterial about paying less as an excuse to survive workforce. That is not true. Because whatever work they must do, they will take into consideration the cost of living for themselves. The expert that own the job, the top management that manages the job, their pay are always following the trend of the economy. It leaves only the downtrodden who are more or less the masses are the ones that suffer voice, and their condition of service is tenured to 2 years, some 4 years. So even when they are making profit and your condition of service is yet to expire, you still bear the burden of the challenges of the economy. So now that it's due for review, it should be a plus for both the employer and the workforce. Don't forget, in the real sense, salary is a motivational factor. Salary is an indices, is a corresponding factor to productivity. So management that are progressive most times initiate increment, even when it's not due, with the mindset of not losing their best workers and at the same time keeping the ground rule of economic changes. So I tell you, private sector have a way of accommodating changes in wages because whatever they do is annually. They win contract based on the current wage they pay. So they don't lose anything. Okay. And some of them belong to a national, they call them National Joint Administrative Council. There's NJIC. The NJIC governs every sector of Nigeria to operate a minimum wage. So despite what you have as national minimum wage, for example, in construction sector, they have a minimum wage. You go to oil and gas, they have a minimum wage, higher than the nation. But at every given time, there is a national minimum wage. It affects everybody because that is more or less like the platform upon which nobody should go less. So everybody begin to review the wages in your industry, whether it has come lower or in any way suffer the workforce there. So the national law is a benchmark to actually help the weakest sector to survive the living wage at every given time.
It's quite revealing that you're saying that the different sectors have their own wages, minimum wages. That's quite interesting. But inflation and the rising cost of living in Nigeria today are undeniable. I mean, right now, as far as the price of items you buy on the market are concerned, it changes almost every other week, if not every other day. And where we are at Nigeria as we speak, as a country, the level of inflation is such that when you go to the market today to buy an item, you can go tomorrow and the price has changed. That's where we are. I don't think Nigerians have seen anything like this in decades. So things are really tough for a lot of people. Can any minimum wage truly keep pace, with the spate of the inflation in the economy, the price of items? Can we really truly have a wage that will be sufficient to be called a living wage with the way things are with the economy as we speak?
Why the demand of wage has become too more or less like the demand is growing almost out of proportion is because of the failure on the part of government in providing some of these social amenities. So minimum wage that is meant to admit and cure the basis of family need. Very little. Every other thing shall be provided by government according to even what the Constitution has made governance to be. But in the absence of governance, absence of government making provisions of this nature, that has made average Nigerian worker now to begin to make road for himself, begin to produce water for himself. You must get generator in Nigeria. So even when salary is still at 30,000 today, inflation has not ceased because those demands are constant for average worker. So either you borrow to buy them or you live in debt or basically even starve. So if using minimum wage as to guide proportional increment,
thank you, comrade.
You will still suffocate the Nigerian workers.
Thank you, comrade. I'm told we have Dr. Shinawa back. We'll just take a break so we can sort out the technicalities, put him back on the air, and then we'll continue our conversation. Please stay with us. Welcome back. Let's move on with our conversation. Still looking at Nigeria's attempt to come up with a new national minimum wage. Ibrahim Shinawa is back with us. Dr. Shinawa, can you hear me? We lost you earlier.
Yes, I can.
Okay, fantastic. So what should that new national minimum wage be? That's the question I was asking you before your Zoom feed froze on us. So please go on. Looking at all the factors at play.
Okay, I will congratulate Labour that Kofi has given Labour more time than the APC government led by Ashwad.
That's not true, sir. We lost contact with you.
Because we have a lot to say, and Kofi, don't forget that we are the one that is going to pay Labour. They work for the government of Federation of Nigeria, and most of the Labour guys you are talking about, most of these opportunities that you are giving to Labour and refuse to give to the paymaster, it's not balanced. I just have to state that fact clear. I'm presently in Abuja, and I was in SDF office today. I witnessed the inauguration, so I know a lot of comrades, who are Kengazins, comrades of Shomole, and my dear brother Joe Ajero. I know a lot of them, even from the state government. I've known all of them. But it's so unfortunate that the government cannot defend itself on this platform. Now, if you are talking about my dear brother over there has stated, few things eloquently clear about payment of, of minimum wage or review of minimum wage. It's presently a law that the government of the Federation of Nigeria must review after every 5 years, and that is what the president is doing. And while doing that, it's not going to be a one-way traffic. It has to be balanced. And a lot of factors, monetary policy, inflation, domestic gross product, and revenue must be considered before you can ascertain or say, okay, you want to go at this level, probably 100,000, 50,000, 80,000. A lot of factors. Apart from the federal government, this is the national law. You have to consider most of the states of the federation that they afford to pay. And then my other brother, I could flip through one or two things he's talking about, that the government is suffocating labor or the workers. Do you know that most of the government policies that will fetch us the minimum wage he is talking about are being managed? Most of the policies are being managed by civil servants who are more or less a saboteur. sabotaging the policies of the government, going against the ways and tactics of the government. Most of them are in ministries and agencies of government, NDAs of government. So the government of Bola Ahmed Tinubu has a fantastic intention to take care of labor, to take care of Nigerian workers, and make them proud. The removal of subsidy alone, the little you could save, you can see the level of distribution. But the magnitude of loss in the system, even from civil servants itself, the Nigerian, so-called Nigerian worker, is enormous. So these are the reasons why the interview needs to be balanced. We need to take it segmentally, and at the end of the day, arrive at a point. I have a civil servant as family member. I have a civil servant, Nigerian workers as friends. I have them as siblings. So these are the areas that we need to look at.
All right.
Number one, the constitution, the committee was just around 4 p.m. today. We need to, the terms and conditions have been laid down by the Vice President and the SGF, Senator George Akume, that these are the committee outlines of things they have to do, and this is the timeline that they have to come back. We have eminent people in the committee, and I have no doubt in my mind that Ashwaju has given them the approval for them to ensure that the Nigerian workers are well taken care of. Also, we need to.
All right, we seem to have an issue with Dr. Shiro. I want to ask quickly, Comrade Amechi, if you're there with us. Did the government pay that 35,000 naira wage award since it was announced as the federal government? Comrade.
Come again?
Yes, was that 35,000 naira wage award announced by the federal government after the subsidy were removed in the negotiations they had with Labour? And was that 35,000 naira paid?
I want to believe, because agitation was only on the private sector demanding for, and don't forget, anything that is a law, if you are not paying, you are owing. And so for me, there is no agitation for delay of payment from the area of civil servants. So I want to believe that has been kept to, and but the general factors to be considered now is the overview standard of living in Nigeria, side by side, the award made, and also the expectation of the general workforce, both private and public sector.
Okay, we have to leave it at that. I'm sure next time we'll have an opportunity to talk about inflation and all, but also representation of the rights of workers in the private sector, because now they feel that Labour does not represent them when it comes to some of these negotiations. Those who work in the private sector who may not be unionized, they feel like they are left out of the loop. Comrade, thank you very kindly for your time. Amechi Asoguni, former Deputy President, Nigeria Labour Congress. Also, Dr. Ibrahim Oshinowo, member APC Presidential Campaign Council in the 2019 and 2023 elections. And that's the size of a package tonight on Politics HQ. Return tomorrow with more conversations on politics in Nigeria. My name is Kofi Bartels. Good night.